define time to time, number one. Action, section 1008, actions requiring a town adoption of annual budgets or any resolution making an improvement of more than $10,000 not included in the annual budget. So therefore, anything over 10,000 has to be brought before the board. We already voted, the town voted on this here 29,000 or 28,000 just to round it off. It should not come before us again. It's been voted. There should be a time limit before it comes up before us again. And this is what they say, they want to transfer funds. That was voted upon already by the town. Are you going to turn around and say that what the town wants isn't accepted? Or are we going to say, let's keep on voting until the selectmen or you or whoever gets exactly what they want? It's not right, because you're not going to get the same amount of people coming to the next town meeting because they know their vote means nothing. Okay? So that's all I have to say. I think we have to make this thing longer than 2 weeks from now. I think it should go at least 6 months before we re-vote on something of this sort. And as far as voting upon, like Doug said, keep it separate, vote on the pay for Mr. Warwick, we can't vote on it either because he's already been paid. So that shouldn't come up. That's not an issue. He's been paid already. And I can't be negative about anyone, so I won't say anything else about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I may or may not comment on every public input in Sebi argument. Just so everyone's aware,
What happened to me?
I said Sebi was next.
No, you told me then Sunday.
Mike, you'll be next. Just so everybody's aware, the Board of Finance has no right to call a town meeting. Only one governing body in this town does, and that is the Board of Selectmen. So we have no right to call a town meeting. We can forward things to a Board of Selectmen, to them push the town meeting, but this board has no authority to call.
Good evening, Sebatian Garafolo, 4 Volunteer Drive, Windsor Locks. First off, as a taxpayer, I was upset and somewhat embarrassed at the fact that we're airing out our dirty laundry in the JI and whatever other media that's out there, because I think what you did with Chris could have probably gotten done and you guys should have taken care of an executive session. 3 years ago, when we had 4 employees retired, they had, 3 of them had 90 sick days each, which was way over $20,000. Did it go in front of a meeting? Am I going to wait for the people that hate the police to vote whether I'm going to get paid my sick time when I retire here? You're going to need a lot more than $9,500 for an attorney. That's money in my contract. That's what I'm fighting for. There's contractual obligations, and I'm sure the selectman was run. You know what? Don't hate the player, hate the game. And if you wanted to change the rules to the game, you should have done it with our charter revision, which did nothing. You said they met for 6 to 8 months, came back, and what did we get? Increased fine on blight. It's not right, okay? This town should hold their head up right now and say, you know what? Hopefully we get the Simon Corporation coming down off Old County Road. We're going to infuse some business, some revenue. Main Street hopefully is going to get done. Last night was a good start. These are the things we should be talking about. That should have been on the news last night. Look what our new Main Street's going to look like. Hopefully that dilapidated Montgomery building, someone's going to infuse some money into that. You know, it's almost embarrassing to invite people into this town and say, yeah, I live off of North Street, and they got to drive by these blighted buildings. And now we got somebody trying to move our town forward, but we keep getting into this divided. I'm a registered Republican. But you know what? I'm going to vote for the best person for this job to move this town forward. And right now, Chris is trying to do that, and we all need to get together and forget what side you're on, and let's be a little more bipartisan. That's all I'm asking.
Mike Brecken, 4 Volunteer Drive, Windsor Locks, retired, or passed, I should say. I think that you and First Selectman Kervick made a mistake when you're talking about state statute overseeing town, because the town always has the right to add to state statute, and that's obvious by the adding of municipal ordinances, and that's how you end up with town ordinances that are enforceable by fines. The first thing is that I'd like to point out is that there's a town charter that talks about section 806, additional capital expenditures, which discusses the spending of $10,000 or more that has to come before the Board of Finance. And that didn't happen with the expenditure of the 28,000, whatever it was, in monies. When it did come to the town, that money had already been spent. So there was a town meeting that was held that was unnecessary. The thing is that then it goes to a section, which is section 808 in the town charter, which specifically states unauthorized expenditures. No expenditure and no commitment to make an expenditure shall be made, caused to be made, or authorized by any officer, agent, or agency of the town, or by any board or commission of the town, unless an appropriation shall have been made by covering such expenditure or commitment in accordance with the provisions of this charter. Any person willfully violating this provision shall be prosecuted by the town. Now that's written in our town charter in ink, and it's signed by the town officials at that time. So what you're doing is you're turning around and you're taking this charter and you're throwing it out the window. And you, as the chairman of the Board of Finance, you're endorsing throwing that charter out the window. So basically what you're saying is that as the Board of Finance, you don't care.
Thank you, Mr. Brecken. I do have a clock going as well. But thank you, everyone in the audience. Let me know.
Stanley, 2 Street, Windsor Locks. Obviously, I'm here to support Chris. It's very disturbing to see the politics that has been played out, whether it's with the Board of Finance, whether it's with the Board of Selectmen. But one of the main questions I have about this is that the balance sheet had a liability account for accrued vacation and sick time. In order to get an accrual, you have to expense it somewhere. So where did the money go? Where did the expense hit? What line items? When Mr. Warwick was first selectman for 10 years, and he was accruing whatever unused, his vacation and sick time. Now, he was entitled to the payout. Nobody can disagree with that, whether you liked him or not. And that has a lot to do with what was voted on at the first town meeting concerning this issue. So I'd like an answer. You're the Board of Finance. Where did the expense go when vacation and sick time for officials are accrued? If you have the liability on your balance sheet, where is the expense?
Kathy, do we accrue PTO, accrued sick, normal course, or?
There's, in the financials, there's compensated absences, which is an accrual of the total amount. That is a note to the financial statement, not on a balance sheet line item. It is a note. So in other words, when you look at the total liability of the town, it's something that's put as a total liability, but it is not a line item that's accrued.
So you're telling me it's not on the balance sheet, but it's a liability.
There is not a specific line item for compensated balances.
But it is
in the general
included.
ledger.
But it is included as a liability.
It's a note to the financials.
Okay. So how is it accounted for within the town? How do you account for it?
One of the things that we will be addressing, and your 2 minutes are up, so, but
I'm sorry.
I do want to answer your question. One of the things that the first selectman and I have agreed is moving into the 16 and 17 budget, Kathy will correct me on this, we're going to come up with another line item And it won't be called contingency 2, but I'm gonna call it that right now because she gave me a fancy word today, and I forgot what it was, but, what was that word, Kathy?
No, it's for, retirement liability.
The re-
It's a retirement payout line.
So we'll
Which is
come.
totally separate than vacation.
Well, no, that will be which will be part of the budget, which we will fund, which will basically offset the cost of when somebody retires, when they have sick time and vacation time, that they're looking for the payout. This line item will pay it out. Will transfers possibly have to be made to it? Yes, we do not know, because the foreseeable future, we don't know what exactly to fund in the item, but at least we will have a line item that addresses these payouts.
Okay. Just one last,
Well, I'll give you one last.
Okay.
Because
why not, within the town board of finance, why not have an accrual on the books, on the balance sheet? Why not have a system of accruing vacation and sick time?
we can look into that, and that's.
It doesn't make
yeah.
any sense.
Okay.
There isn't a company around, an organization around, an agency
All
around.
right, definitely time. Yeah, we're there.
Public agenda, Chris, get the simple.
Well, it's simple accounting.
Thank you. I want to have everybody go first, and then we could possibly come around for a second input.
I just wanted to clarify something that we've been talking about, and it's from my years of experience having to work with the charter and the statutes. We're talking about the charter says, the charter says, the charter says, but we have to understand that that's only one part of the law that governs how the town operates. The statutes is the other part, and then we have ordinances. You can't say that you're going to ignore the statute because the charter says this. Under our system, and this is a little bit complicated, so be patient with me. Under our system, okay, the towns as creatures of the state have only the authority given them. So if you run into a statutory obligation that says the town shall, unless it says, unless otherwise provided by charter, you don't have the authority to not do that. It didn't give us the authority. So we have to be very careful when we keep concentrating on the charter. If there's a statute that conflicts with the charter and it doesn't make provision, it has superior power. The statute rules, not the charter. So we need to remember that. And remember, you can't look at just the charter. You have to look at what the statutes say too. And there was a conflict between the statute and the charter. The statute says you have to do it, you have to do it. The lesson I think that we needed to learn from this is as soon as we know that there's a potential expenditure, we need to bring it forward so that in a timely manner we can accomplish meeting both the statutory requirement and the charter provisions. So that's all I have to say.
Wait, Mike, yep, in the blue. Yep. Come on up.
Couldn't remember. Good evening, Chairman Harrington, distinguished board members. I'm John McSwegan III, 12 2nd Street. I'm here to express my support of and the actions of our first selectman. I think I'm right. I'm not a financial wizard, nor am I a labor attorney, but I'm from Windsor Locks. It's my hometown, and seeing these inflammatory things in the paper is disheartening. I know we're better than that. I know you guys, and you're better than that. So I'm asking the Board of Finance to put aside, if any, petty politics that you're holding on to, put them aside, and please adhere to what I think is a well-established precedent regarding payment of our outgoing first selectmen's accrued vacation, sick, and other accumulated time. It's a no-brainer. And leave that smooth motion to transfer the monies into the salary account where they put it, and Chris paid it out to Mr. Warwick. And that should be left alone. You did a good job there with that, sort of. In my opinion, I wouldn't waste any monies hiring an independent counsel to review the senseless, small-minded actions that have brought us here tonight. That's what I read in the paper. Now, I'm no stranger to the process here, and I understand the nature of this beast. I can see the looks on your faces. Maybe you don't care what I'm saying, but I gave 28 years of my life here in town, working through the sewer, the inland wetlands, and the recycling and trash commissions. And it's quite a great ride. I always saw a harmonious relationship between the first selectman and the Board of Finance. And that's when you guys got things done, when things were working well together. You should be friends. None of this backstab and stuff in the papers. Forget that stuff.
I appreciate your comments. We've reached 2 minutes, but thank you. Thank you. You know that, right? So,
I'm closing.
okay, if you're closing.
So I'd like to see us return to this professional style of conducting town business out of the papers and bring back that peaceful, easy feeling as we move the town forward.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I was calling on our next. Yep. Come on up.
Hello, distinguished Board of Finance. My name is Sarah Lemaster. I'm from 41 Fox Hollow Drive. I think that in these decisions, we sometimes forget the why. I'd like to remind you that the reason that this is before us is because Mr. Warwick worked himself to the bone for this town. You don't accumulate $28,000 in sick leave and paid time off, vacation, by doing nothing. And you are all public servants. I'm a public servant myself. And I hope that tonight we make the decision to ensure that public service is honored and appreciated in this town. It's very, very important. If we don't want good public servants, then by all means, vote not to put the money in. But if you want good public servants, then we need to make sure that we reward that. We don't want people to run for office thinking they're not going to get paid for their time. That's ridiculous. We need to make sure that we reward the kind of service that we want. Mr. Warwick, I think, by all means, deserves that recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Russo, Mike, I know, but we're going to hit everybody first, and I promise I'm coming to you.
Good evening. I too agree with
Bill,
Sebatian
can you just
Garafolo.
say
Lee
your...
Russo, 407 Elmer Drive.
Thank you.
AKA for Volunteer Drive, for the record. I think if Selectman Kermit has verified that whatever time he's looking to pay Selectman Warwick, that should be done. I do agree with Sebatian Garafolo. We need to move forward as a town, and we need to come together to do that. However, I think it's incumbent upon us to go slow, to evaluate, to have the knowledge in front of us, instead of what I call the old smoke and mirrors approach. And I'll give you the example. When we had the town meeting, it was called request for transfer. I then asked, what does that request for unfunded monies compose of? And then Selectman Kermit laid out what it was for. I would encourage the Board of Finance to have each unfunded or undesignated request for funds to be identified specifically and reviewed. I personally want more information. I personally have I want to have some knowledge about the capital improvements and where the money's going. And I applaud the Board of Finance for holding people accountable. That has not been done in this town. You're holding our officials accountable, which I greatly appreciate. And I greatly appreciate the fact that we have everybody here tonight to speak their piece.
Thank you. Are there any other first public inputs? Going once, twice? Michael, oh, is that Gerard?
Yeah,
Come on up.
do I have to?
Yes. Everybody gets to come to the front of the room if you're talking.
Gerard Weatherby, 10 Town Line. Where's the clock start?
Now,
So I'm looking at the website of some attorneys, Coleman and Comley.
Name, address.
yeah, he did list his name and address. It will be on the record, but Gerard, I did stop your time.
Oh, thank you. All right, all
I
right.
did.
So there's this
Fair timekeeper, I'm
Florida's
sorry.
website, says Connecticut General Statute 3776K says blah, blah, blah. There's no statute that says you get unused sick time. Sorry, that's just what the statute says, and if you don't like it, go home, look it up yourself. Given there's no statute, either a collective bargaining association, so the police department's not affected, because you guys are covered by your contract, or town policy. So either the first selectman followed the town policy or he didn't, but this concept that he's entitled to a period simply is not matched by the law. If you don't believe me, I urge the Board of Finance to talk to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, like someone with a law degree. I'm done.
You didn't need to. Any other firsts? Going once? Going twice? Mr. Pacino, you can come up for your second, but you still only have 2 minutes.
And when I start, right?
From when you start.
Just to answer the two young ladies that were up here who said that he deserves the vacation pay and the other time. Last night at the meeting, our selectmen said that they're not obligated to go by the contract or the handbook because they don't know how long they're going to be here as far as vacation goes. But yet they're taking the 45 days from the handbook. Either you take all of it or none of it. It states here, vacation time earned in 1 year must be used in the following year or lost. Pay will not be granted in lieu of vacation time. Under extreme circumstances, the first selectman, upon request from the employee, may grant or carry over vacation time to the next year. So they can carry over 4 weeks from the year before and the 4 weeks he got, but he can't get paid for it. This is their own handbook. He's going by the handbook on the part of working for 10 years, you get 45 days sick time. Now, this has got to be changed because if you're not sick, you shouldn't get any sick time. That's what we used to say. You get 120 days a year sick time, or 120 days to get Jubilee of sick time, 15 days a year. If you're sick, that's great. I have no problem with that. But if you're not sick, that's extra pay, you shouldn't get it. But he doesn't deserve the vacation time according to the handbook. So what we owed him was $15,557 or $15,800. We don't owe him anything for vacation. Thank you.
Thank you.
When was it published?
You want to read it?
Mr. Glazer.
I just want to just call out a procedural thing that is often mistook or mislooked. They say that if you want to take $30,000 of money for something, you could do it in 10,000 increments. Go $10,000, then a month later another 10,000, and another month later another 10,000. The charter doesn't work that way. You got to, if you go 10,000 from a specific item, and then you come back a month later and you add $100 to it, that goes to town meeting. So in other words, anytime, it's cumulative, it's not one at a time, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Just
It's only a clarification.
Nope, that's fine. I think this board agrees on that. Mr. Brackett.
Just a couple more points. First off, I think that, I know that I don't like being labeled a hater, and I think that our sergeant needs to reevaluate the situation or turn in his spars, because for somebody to turn around and I think that your rules at the beginning is that there wasn't going to be any name calling. And for him to turn around and call people that have a different opinion than his haters, I think is a violation of your own rules that you set. Second off, one of the things that was said last night is that the first selectman said that he was volunteering his time. And I pointed out last night, according to state statute, he can't do that. First off, state labor law doesn't allow that. The Fair Labor Standards Act says that he's entitled to be paid for every hour worked. So in retrospect, by him turning around and giving his money or his salary to past First Selectman Steve Warwick, what he did is he put the town in a position where the Town of Windsor Locks is in violation of the law because they have an employee that's working for nothing. So by rights, the Town of Windsor Locks can be fined. The other thing is the Town of Windsor Locks needs to change that, and the fact is that we need checks and balances, because I understand that Mr. Warwick kept track of his own time, and I don't understand how he can do that, because who is to say that the time that he submitted payment for is the time that he actually has coming to him? Why isn't somebody keeping track of the First Selectman's records? I know that when an employee of the Town of Windsor Locks retires, his supervisor or the department head of his agency has the records of what he's entitled to retire with.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any other public input? Any other public input? Hearing
I just may have a question. Is the selectman an employee of the town or an elected official? I'd like some clarification.
Listen, this came up in a meeting before, and I'm going to address it. The Board of Finance, we don't really, we have a charter, and we're governed by the charter, but when it comes down to policies of, is the first selectman an elected official, a full-time employee? Any board member know the answer to that?
If he fell down in a building, does he have workman's compensation?
I would say yes, but I am not the insurance company, and I'm not a lawyer.
Does he have a private contract?
I don't believe he has, I don't.
Because he's going by the handbook, he's not going by.
We're getting crazy on the public input all of a sudden. I don't like crazy. Moving beyond that. Is there any other public input? Yes.
I see a lot of crazy stuff with this thing.
Your name and
My name is Chris Halpin from 2 Pearl Street, and I just was kind of curious. I don't think that anybody really truly thinks that Steve Warwick took a job, worked here 10 years as our first selectman, and decided, well, I'm just doing this to get $28,000 at the end of the big payout. I think the guy actually, thinks he's deserved this, and this is what we need to do. That's my only input.
thank you.
My name is Gail Stagman, 308 South Center Street. And all I'd like to say is, I think it's very sad that we have come here tonight to talk about Steve Warwick, Chris Kervick, Stephen's pay. Whether Steve did a good job or a horrible job, we elected him as our head official in this town, and he did 10 years. If it's his contract that says he receives his accrued vacation time and sick time up to a certain point, then this is what we should honor. Because I do believe 41 years in this town, I always believed that the town of Windsor Locks was an honorable place to live. But when we put this out on the line for everybody to know, I've never heard another town official or town employee being held accountable at this. This is sad. This should not come to this. And I'm sorry. I just feel that we should all do what is right. And I know that Chris did what he did because he's a kind man. He's a good man.
It was right.
So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public input? Yes, in the back.
Hello,
Hello.
speaking. Karen Gianelli, 2 Colombo Terrace. I really wasn't going to speak, but Gail just used the word honored, and I just have to take 2 seconds to just acknowledge Chris and everything that he has brought so far to this town since his election, number one. Number two, I did just very basic research on the computer. I am so not a financial person, never have been. But in 2009, there was our budget document, and there was a line item, long-term debt, and it refers to other obligations, including accrued vacation pay and sick leave. More detailed information about the liabilities is presented in Note 7 to the financial statements. And then if you go to Note 7, there is a line item that's called compensated absences. So it's good to honor Steve, but it's really, in my opinion, like in any company, as a couple people said, it just makes sense. If you have people who are reaching retirement or mention retirement or they're coming to the end of the line, we have a human resources person or do we not?
We do.
Okay, so we have a human resources person, we've got a financial planner, we've got all you guys, like, we should kind of anticipate what's coming so that it's just a no-brainer. So to me, unfortunately, this really looks like a personal thing against Mr. Ulrich, and that's very sad. Then it became personal against Mr. Karvik, who in good faith, I think, tried to do the right thing. So thank you, Chris, and let's get this cleaned up, please.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? Going once? Going twice? Public input is closed. We will be opening public input again as we go through the meeting. Next item up for discussion is discussion of the